December 1944. German commanders communicate their battle plans through what they believe is an unbreakable encryption system. They issue orders, coordinate movements, and discuss strategy with complete confidence that Allied intelligence cannot penetrate their communications. But in a secret facility in England, American cryptanalysts are reading every word in real time. When German High Command finally discovered the truth, their reaction revealed just how completely the Allies had dominated the intelligence war. Today, we're revealing what they actually said when they realized the Americans had been listening all along. The story begins not in December 1944, but 3 years earlier, in a nondescript building in Bletchley Park, England. By 1941, British cryptanalysts had achieved what many thought impossible. They had broken the Enigma cipher machine. The intelligence gained from decrypted German communications, codenamed Ultra, became one of the most closely guarded secrets of World War II. But Enigma was only part of the story. The Germans used multiple encryption systems, and as the war progressed, they introduced increasingly sophisticated methods. One of the most critical was the Lorenz cipher, used by German High Command for strategic communications between Hitler's headquarters and field commanders. The British codenamed these intercepts Fish. Breaking them required not just brilliant mathematics, but the development of entirely new computing technology. By 1944, a joint Anglo-American intelligence operation was reading German communications at multiple levels. The Americans contributed their own cryptolytic expertise, code-breaking equipment, and, critically, their ability to process and disseminate intelligence to field commanders rapidly. At the Pentagon, a special intelligence unit called the Special Branch of Military Intelligence Service coordinated the distribution of decrypted German messages to commanders in Europe. The intelligence advantage was staggering. Allied commanders knew German unit positions, strength assessments, supply situations, and often their operational intentions before attacks were launched. General Eisenhower later called ultra-intelligence decisive to Allied victory. But the advantage only worked if the Germans never suspected their codes had been compromised. With quiet intensity, that meant elaborate deception. Every time Allied forces acted on ultra-intelligence, they had to create a plausible alternative explanation. Reconnaissance flights were flown over targets to suggest aerial observation had discovered enemy positions. Fake radio traffic created false narratives about intelligence sources. Captured documents were staged. The entire war effort balanced on maintaining this single critical secret. By December 1944, the system had been operating successfully for over 3 years. Thousands of people knew about Ultra, yet operational security remained intact. German commanders continued using their encryption systems with complete confidence. They never seriously considered the possibility that their most secret communications were being read by the enemy. Then came the Battle of the Bulge, and everything almost fell apart. The German offensive in the Ardennes forest achieved complete tactical surprise. Despite ultra-intelligence, despite the thousands of intercepted messages, Allied commanders failed to predict the attack. How? The answer reveals both the brilliance of German operational security and the critical role code-breaking played in defeating the offensive once it began.
The morning of December 16, 1944, caught Allied intelligence completely off guard. Despite reading German communications for years, despite monitoring troop movements and supply buildups, Allied analysts failed to predict Operation Wacht am Rhein. The failure wasn't due to lack of information, It was due to too much information and not enough context. In the weeks before the offensive, German signals traffic in the Ardennes sector had actually decreased. Units maintained radio silence. Communications were carried by courier rather than transmitted over the air. What messages were sent used lower-level codes or were transmitted via landline, which Allied listening posts couldn't intercept. German commanders implemented near-perfect operational security. But what Allied intelligence didn't realize was that absence of information was itself information. The silence in a previously active sector should have raised alarms. Instead, analysts assumed German forces in the Ardennes were depleted, resting, or preparing for defensive operations. Every piece of evidence was interpreted through the lens of a single belief: Germany was defeated and could not launch major offensives. Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Wilhelm von Mellenthin, Chief of Staff for the German 5th Panzer Army, later wrote, "We knew the Americans had sophisticated intelligence capabilities. Our security measures were designed specifically to deny them the information they had become dependent upon. The radio silence was absolute. Messages were hand-carried. Units moved only at night. We assumed they would notice something, but hoped they would misinterpret what the silence meant." They were right. On December 15th, just hours before the offensive, ultra intercepts revealed German units receiving assault rations and ammunition. But by then, it was too late. At 5:30 a.m. on December 16th, German artillery opened fire across an 80-mile front. The Americans were caught completely unprepared. But what the Germans didn't know was that their operational security, perfect before the attack, would collapse immediately afterward. The moment combat began, radio silence became impossible. Commanders needed to coordinate movements, request supplies, report positions, and receive orders. Every transmission was intercepted, every message decoded. Within 48 hours, Allied intelligence began assembling a comprehensive picture of German intentions, capabilities, and unit locations. The intelligence advantage shifted decisively back to the Allies. By December 18th, ultra-intercepts revealed the German objectives: capture Antwerp, split Allied armies, force a negotiated peace. The information reached Eisenhower's headquarters within hours. Supreme Command understood not just what was happening, but what the Germans intended to happen. At the Pentagon's Special Branch headquarters, cryptanalysts worked around the clock processing intercepted German communications from the Ardennes. The volume was enormous, hundreds of messages daily, unit movement reports, supply requests, casualty figures, orders from German high command to field armies. Every transmission provided another piece of the puzzle. Colonel Telford Taylor, Chief of the Special Branch's European section, coordinated the effort. Intelligence wasn't useful unless it reached commanders who could act on it. Taylor's team developed a system for prioritizing intercepts, translating them, analyzing their significance, and transmitting the most critical information to field headquarters via secure channels. The system worked with remarkable efficiency. By December 20th, American commanders possessed detailed information about German unit locations, strength estimates, and immediate objectives. They knew which roads German supply columns were using. They knew which panzer divisions were held in reserve. They knew ammunition and fuel were running critically low in forward German units. General Omar Bradley later wrote, "The intelligence we received during the Battle of the Bulge was extraordinarily detailed. We knew more about German dispositions than we sometimes knew about our own forces. It gave us the ability to anticipate their movements and concentrate our forces at critical points." But the intelligence advantage created a dangerous paradox. The more effectively Allied commanders used ultra-intelligence, the greater the risk German commanders would realize their codes were compromised. Every time American forces ambushed a German column whose position was revealed by intercepted communications,
The Germans had to attribute the attack to something: reconnaissance, local intelligence, random chance. As long as they believed their codes were secure, the system worked. The challenge intensified as the battle progressed. On December 22nd, Ultra intercepts revealed that German forces surrounding Bastogne were critically short of fuel and ammunition. The information confirmed that if American forces could maintain the siege long enough, the German offensive would collapse from logistical failure. Patton's relief of Bastogne wasn't just a tactical victory, it was an operation informed by detailed intelligence about enemy vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, German commanders grew increasingly frustrated. Every attack seemed to encounter prepared American defenses. Every flanking maneuver ran into unexpected resistance. Supply columns were ambushed. Artillery positions were targeted with uncanny accuracy. Reconnaissance elements reported American forces concentrating at exactly the points German commanders intended to attack. On December 23rd, the weather cleared. Allied aircraft filled the skies. German commanders assumed this explained the sudden American tactical advantages. Air reconnaissance, they believed, had revealed their positions. It was a plausible explanation, one that preserved their faith in communication security. But what they didn't know was that ultra-intelligence had directed those aerial flights to specific locations. Pilots photographed German positions that codebreakers had already identified through intercepted communications. The aerial reconnaissance provided both additional intelligence and plausible cover for how that intelligence was obtained.
By late December, the combination of ultra-intelligence and overwhelming Allied material superiority was crushing the German offensive. But in Berlin, questions were beginning to surface. How were the Americans responding so quickly? How did they seem to anticipate every German move? On December 28th, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commander of German forces in the West, sent an encrypted message to the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, German High Command, expressing concern about American intelligence capabilities. The message was intercepted by Allied listening posts, decoded, analyzed. It revealed that German commanders suspected American reconnaissance and possibly agents were providing detailed information about German positions, but they still didn't suspect their codes were broken. Von Rundstedt's message discussed improving camouflage, restricting daytime movement, and implementing more rigorous security for physical documents. Not once did he suggest reviewing encryption procedures. Allied intelligence breathed a collective sigh of relief. The secret remained intact, but it was a close call. If German commanders had even suspected code compromise, they would have changed their entire communication system overnight. Years of cryptolytic work would have been wasted. The intelligence advantage that had helped win the war would vanish. The Americans pushed their advantage. On December 30th, Ultra intercepts revealed that German forces were preparing to withdraw certain units from the Bastogne sector to reinforce other areas. The information reached American commanders within hours. They launched attacks against the weakened sectors before German forces could complete their redeployment. Entire German units were caught in motion, vulnerable, disorganized. German commanders were baffled. Lieutenant General Hans von Montefiore, commanding the 5th Panzer Army, later testified, "We could not understand how American forces consistently appeared at our weakest points. Every time we attempted to shift forces, we encountered immediate American attacks. Our staff considered multiple explanations: superior reconnaissance, widespread espionage networks, possibly captured documents revealing our plans. But our conclusion was always that American commanders were simply very competent and very aggressive." They were right about American competence and aggression, but those qualities were magnified exponentially by knowing exactly where to be competent and exactly where to be aggressive. By early January 1945, the German offensive had completely collapsed. Allied forces recaptured all lost territory. The Wehrmacht suffered casualties it could never replace. Hitler's last gamble in the West had failed catastrophically.
January 1945. The Battle of the Bulge was over, but the intelligence war continued. As Allied armies prepared to cross the Rhine and invade Germany itself, ultra-intercepts provided a continuous stream of information about German defenses, unit positions, and strategic intentions. Every day brought hundreds of decoded messages. Every message shortened the war by revealing German vulnerabilities. But in Berlin, senior officers were beginning to piece together an uncomfortable truth. The pattern of American tactical successes was too consistent to be explained by reconnaissance alone. On January 15th, Colonel Alexis von Rhone, chief of German Army intelligence on the Eastern Front, circulated a memo suggesting that Soviet forces might have broken certain German codes. His evidence was clear: the Red Army's uncanny ability to exploit German weaknesses, its precision in concentrating forces at critical points. The memo reached Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of the Kriegsmarine. Dönitz had long suspected Allied forces were reading German naval communications. U-boat losses since 1943 had been catastrophic, far higher than random chance could explain. Allied convoys seemed to avoid German submarine patrol areas with impossible precision. Dönitz had demanded investigations. He had questioned communication security repeatedly. Each time, his cryptographers assured him the codes were unbreakable. Now, with von Rhone raising similar concerns about land operations, Dönitz demanded a comprehensive review. On February 3, 1945, German High Command convened a special security conference to assess whether Allied intelligence had achieved a strategic breakthrough. The meeting included senior officers from all branches, cipher experts, security specialists. For 3 days, they reviewed operational patterns, analyzed Allied tactical responses, evaluated the security of German encryption systems. They examined captured American documents, they interrogated prisoners, they reviewed every possible explanation for Allied intelligence successes. Their conclusion, documented in a report dated February 6 and later captured by Allied forces, was definitive. American and British intelligence capabilities are highly sophisticated, employing extensive aerial reconnaissance, aggressive patrol activity, and possibly a widespread agent network in occupied territories. However, analysis of our encryption systems reveals no mathematical vulnerabilities. All evidence suggests our strategic communications remain secure. The enemy's tactical advantages stem from superior material resources, air superiority, and aggressive exploitation of battlefield intelligence, not from compromise of our cipher systems. They were catastrophically wrong, but their analysis was logical given what they believed. German cryptographers had designed brilliant encryption systems. The mathematics were sound. The engineering was excellent. What they could not imagine was that the Allies had built machines specifically to break those codes, machines capable of analyzing millions of possibilities in hours, finding patterns invisible to human analysts. The report concluded with recommendations: improve physical document security, enhance reconnaissance countermeasures. Not one word suggested changing encryption systems. From the Allied perspective, it was the best possible outcome. German commanders would continue using compromised codes right up until the end of the war. The truth didn't emerge until after Germany's surrender. In late May 1945, Allied intelligence teams captured massive archives from German High Command. Among the documents was a complete set of communication logs, operational reports, and security assessments from throughout the war. One document, dated May 4, 1945, just days before the final surrender, revealed the moment German commanders finally understood what had happened. General Alfred Jodl, chief of German Armed Forces Operations Staff, wrote in his personal diary, "Have reviewed captured Allied intelligence documents. The scope of their signals intelligence operation defies comprehension. They were reading our communications. Not occasionally, not selectively. Everything. For years. Every major decision we made, every order we issued, every movement we planned, they knew. We were not defeated by American industrial capacity alone. We were defeated because we fought the entire war while our enemy read our every thought." The diary entry continued. Witnesses who saw it immediately after the war reported that Jodl's handwriting became almost illegible toward the end, as if written in emotional distress. How many men died because we believed our codes were secure? How many operations failed because the enemy knew our plans before we executed them? We trusted our mathematics and our engineers, and that trust betrayed us utterly. History will judge whether we lost the war in battle or whether we lost it the moment the enemy broke Enigma, and we never knew. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, chief of OKW, was shown captured ultra-intercepts during his interrogation at Nuremberg. According to testimony from the interrogating officer, Keitel read through several pages of decrypted German high command messages in silence. Then he set the documents down and said simply, "We never had a chance. You knew everything. Every movement, every plan, every resource shortage. You let us believe we were fighting a conventional war, and all along you were reading our mail. It's the most complete intelligence victory in military history." Admiral Karl Dönitz's reaction was equally revealing. Confronted with evidence that Allied forces had been tracking U-boat positions through decrypted communications, he reportedly said, "I demanded investigations. I questioned our security repeatedly. My staff assured me the codes were unbreakable. They were right. The codes were unbreakable by human analysis, but you built machines we couldn't imagine. You approached the problem in ways we never considered possible. That's not an intelligence victory. That's a technological revolution we didn't see coming." Perhaps most significantly, German cryptographers themselves expressed professional respect bordering on awe. Dr. Friedrich Wilhelm von Sell, chief designer of military encryption systems, examined the British Colossus computer used to break Lorenz ciphers. His statement, recorded by British intelligence, read, "This machine represents a computational capability we believed was decades away. If I had known such technology existed, I would have designed entirely different systems. But we built our ciphers to be unbreakable by the technology of the 1930s. You built technology specifically to break them. The failure wasn't in our mathematics, it was in our imagination." The full story of Ultra remained classified until the 1970s. For nearly 30 years after the war, the men and women who broke German codes kept their secret. Cryptanalysts returned to civilian life without ever revealing what they had done. The machines that won the intelligence war were dismantled or destroyed. Even many veterans who fought the war never knew their victories had been guided by decrypted enemy communications. When the secret was finally revealed, it fundamentally changed historical understanding of World War II. Battles, once seen as close-run affairs, were now understood as victories shaped by intelligence advantage. Operations that appeared to succeed through bold leadership alone had also benefited from knowing exactly what the enemy planned to do. The bravery and sacrifice of Allied soldiers remained undiminished, but the strategic picture shifted dramatically. The technology developed to break German codes laid the foundation for modern computing. The Colossus machines at Bletchley Park were among the world's first programmable electronic computers. The mathematical techniques developed by cryptanalysts like Alan Turing influenced computer science, artificial intelligence, and information theory. The intelligence war created the technological revolution that defined the late 20th century. For Germany, the revelation explained many of the war's most puzzling moments. Why U-boat patrol areas missed Allied convoys, why American forces exploited German weaknesses during the Battle of the Bulge, why every major German offensive encountered prepared defenses. Because Allied commanders had read the plans before they were executed. The intelligence advantage did not guarantee victory. Allied forces still had to fight, still had to face determined resistance, still had to execute complex operations under fire. But they fought with something unprecedented: knowledge. The lesson extends beyond World War II. Modern warfare depends on information dominance, signals intelligence, cyber warfare, electronic surveillance. The side that controls information controls the battlefield. The Germans learned this lesson the hardest way possible, by fighting an entire war while their enemy read every secret message. The intelligence war of World War II contains countless untold stories of deception, innovation, and human drama. Next time, we'll reveal what Churchill said when he learned that ultra-intelligence had been compromised during a critical operation, and how Allied intelligence scrambled to prevent the entire code-breaking effort from being exposed. What aspect of the signals intelligence war interests you most? The technology, the people, or the strategic impact? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're fascinated by the hidden stories that shaped World War II, subscribe to the channel and enable notifications. We explore the moments textbooks often overlook, but that made all the difference. Thank you for watching.